was happening on the floor of the House, but I know a guy who was there, and he is the House Majority Leader, Dave Reed. Good morning.
Good morning, Todd.
Okay, so yesterday, it's being characterized as a breakdown in talks, as a split, as a feud, all kinds of different things that are being said about what's going on with the budget talks in Harrisburg. I don't guess that you can condense it down to one word, but how do you characterize what's going on the floor of the House right now as we try to find a budget solution?
Frustrating. And I would say not just for the floor of the House, but the entire Capitol.
Yeah, I can understand that. So take us inside the talks, and especially what happened yesterday as the talks broke down, and you were there.
Yes. Well, I'm still here, actually. But, look, we spent a good portion of the last couple weeks, actually the last couple months, trying to find a conclusion to the budget that would fill in that extra, that last, $150 million that seems to be the most elusive part of this budget equation. And it seems like every suggestion that is thrown out there, one party agrees to, another party does not agree to. And, you have different blocks in the House and the Senate, different thought processes within the governor's office. And it seems like everybody has their own ideas, and none of those ideas necessarily are, commingling together. Like I said, I think about $2 billion worth of the revenue package, which is mostly non-tax revenue, has generally been agreed to by all the parties. But that last, $100 to $200 million has been the part that has kept all the different sides at bay for quite some time now. So yesterday, the governor made the decision that he was going to securitize, he was going to sell off part of the revenue stream from our liquor stores that would raise about $1.25 billion to help fill in the deficit from last year. It was a new idea. We were actually not told of that idea before the governor announced it at a press conference, but apparently he has the authority to do that on his own. So that will take care of a good portion of the deficit that was hanging over from last year's budget. And then, he said he's going to make some other changes as well. We haven't actually been clued into what those changes are going to be. But discussions will continue as we find out more information.
As the governor announced that and it began to filter down through the Republican caucus, I'm sure the reactions, I don't know. You tell me what the reaction was. As your colleagues started to get word of what the governor was doing, how did they react? What was the general feeling?
Well, it was an interesting reaction because we were still on the House floor voting on legislation related to the budget. So to do a press conference in that manner is a little bit, uncharacteristic, but, so be it. I think some of the initial reaction was, can the governor legally do that? We've been told that he does have the authority through the LCB to do that. Certainly, once he makes that decision, liquor privatization will not be able to be revisited for decades. When you're selling off that revenue stream, the system would have to remain in place to be able to produce that revenue stream to raise those sort of dollars. I think some of the other questions out there, the bond rating got downgraded a couple weeks ago. If the governor kind of had this in his back pocket, why not do it a couple weeks ago so that the bond rating would not have been downgraded? But look, it's Monday morning quarterback, hindsight's 2020. I think there's still a lot of questions out there on what the governor decided to do yesterday, but he's the governor. He gets that prerogative.
Governor, of course, was talking about the severance tax again yesterday and what he considers to be the necessity of Pennsylvania instituting a severance tax on natural gas. The Senate version of the budget spending aspect of it, or the allocation of the funds to pay for the budget, includes the severance tax. House has been resistant to it. How strong is that resistance at this point after all of these months of talks? And do you expect that anybody is going to fold on that issue?
I'm sure people are going to keep talking about it. And I think one of the difficulties with the severance tax is a lot of people look at a severance tax as if it's just raising the personal income tax or the sales tax by 1%, that it's easy to do. When you're implementing a new tax, there's a lot of technical side to that tax that you have to really make sure you get right because you're going into uncharted territory. And with the severance tax, the Senate version had some changes to environmental regulations. some landowner protection. So you're not just dealing with the raising of the revenue, you're actually dealing with several different subsets that you've got to get the right balance to actually get it to move forward. For me personally, the severance tax that the Senate proposed is concerning because it doesn't give any recognition or any credit for the impact fee dollars that are paid today. And if you look at the actual dollars from last year, Pennsylvania's impact fee raised more money from the natural gas industry than West Virginia's severance tax did last year. And their severance tax is at a higher rate than the governor had proposed. So I think you got to look at total dollars raised and what are we looking to do for job creation, aside from the fact that you want to get the technical side of that particular tax correct if we're going to move in that direction. There's probably a way to do it. It doesn't happen with a flip of a switch. It doesn't happen with talking points from, the environmental groups that want a severance tax or the natural gas industry that doesn't. It actually takes a lot of folks getting in a room and deciding who's going to give, who's going to take. That just hasn't occurred with the severance tax.
I think what you just said is very important because there is the actual process that is being fought through in Harrisburg right now about severance taxes or any other of the issues having to do with the budget. And then there's the public battle that is being waged and some of the charges that have been made by those in favor of the severance tax is that the Republican majority is bowing to the wishes of the lobbyists with the Marcellus Shale interests, and there have been other similar charges to that nature. When you hear things such as that, accusations made such as that, I'm sure you don't think that's helpful to reaching a successful conclusion. But how do you react to those sorts of things? Because that's public relations right there, and obviously it can be damaging.
It's one of those things that, unfortunately is part of the political process today. And I don't think those sort of charges hold any more merit than saying that, Democratic lawmakers do everything, that the labor unions want on every occasion. Maybe they lean a little bit more towards the labor unions on any given day, but I don't honestly think every Democratic lawmaker or Democratic governor does everything that the labor unions want just because they're labor unions. So I think, unfortunately, that's more part of the public discourse. But the reality, you look at folks who have got concerns about a severance tax. Most of them live in a region where their primary employers are actually the natural gas industry or the related supply industries that go along with it. For instance, you look at Indiana County. We've got more wells in Indiana County than any other county across the entire state. And you and I both know how many folks have unfortunately become unemployed over the last couple of years because of the dip in the natural gas industry. I mean, the Halliburton facility in Homer City alone, lost 700 jobs when they decided to move that facility to Ohio. So, I mean, there are real people working in that industry that, the folks who are concerned about a severance tax are genuinely concerned about the families who put their food on their family's table as a result of the natural gas industry. Just like a lot of folks, you go down to the southeastern portion of the state, they're concerned about the biotech industry. They're concerned about the Port Authority. They're concerned about mass transit because those are the bread and butter areas of employment for their residents.
State House Majority Dave Reed with us here today. A part of that whole energy equation as well has to be the fate of the Homer City generating station. We're hearing some very distressing news about some of the considerations for the fate of that plant and whether it can remain a viable employer here in Indiana County. There have even been suggestions not only of selling it off, but just closing it down. Obviously, that would be a blow that would almost prove fatal to this area because of the number of jobs that are lost, not only at the plant but in the support industries as well. And I know that has to be a part of what you are considering in Harrisburg. Maybe not right at the forefront as you're talking budget, but certainly for the long term.
It's a real and legitimate concern. The struggles of that plant for the last number of years have been, I know, frustrating for the region, frustrating for the Homer City area, and all the folks who depend upon it for employment. And I don't think it's any secret, the last owner of the plant, GE, did not necessarily keep up with the maintenance and the investment needed to keep that plant in tip-top shape. So when the bondholders took over get it into better working order. And then you have the market overall for electricity is down. And part of that's because of the surgence of natural gas, and the lower natural gas prices drive down the price of coal, and that drives down the profitability of a plant like Homer City. So I think, part of the frustrations with the Homer City generation station were controllable by the past owner, but part of it's market conditions, and certainly, some of the stuff that happened in previous administrations in Washington, D.C. with environmental regulations certainly increased the cost of running a plant like that. So, I know we've had the opportunity to meet with the leadership team down there and hear, a little bit about what they're trying to do, what they're trying to accomplish. Certainly if there's anything from a state perspective to keep it headed in a better direction. I know between Senator White and myself and the regional delegation, as well as the federal folks are going to be willing to do so. But, certainly weather conditions play a role in that as well. And as much as I love 65 to 70 degrees, folks aren't using as much electricity when it's, you got the air conditioner off and the heating system off. So the mild winter last year, the mild summer certainly can, play into the profitability of a plant like that as well.
Yeah, and that's not only here, but for areas which that power plant serves, which are, I think people would be surprised, the reach of the Homer City generating station and Indiana County's power plants in general, how far out their product goes. Well, you're going to continue in Harrisburg for a while, I'm sure, and waiting for your colleagues to get back after yesterday when a bunch of them left. But much to be done on the state budget package, and you continue to fight that fight. Thanks for being with us here today.
Thanks for having me, Don. Have a good week.
You too. There's State Representative Dave Reed, the House Majority Leader, here in Indiana in the Morning, presented by First Commonwealth Bank, WCCS, AM 1160 and FM 101.1.